Hello, my name is Rob, and today I will talk about Mark Carney's end of the year speech, specifically around climate, and why Mark Carney is incorrect on climate action, or at the very least, misleading the public. And I will switch to an article. This one is from the CBC, called Too Much Regulation, Not Enough Action. Carney rebuffs Trudeau's climate policies. And this is a CBC article by Benjamin Lopez-Steven. And there was an interview with Rosemary Bolton of CBC. Mark Carney said that Canada has too much regulation and not enough investments in clean energy and technology. And he said, because I care about the issue fundamentally, I care about what gets done. Carney said in a year-long interview with CBC News airing Sunday morning, not what is put in regulation, not is what is said, not is what is prohibited, and then nothing happens. We have too much regulation and not enough action. And that's from the article. And a quote from the Prime Minister, Mark Carney. The action, he's reducing a lot of the climate action, making it worse, not better. And I will go on to the next article from the Climate Action Network. Environmental and civil society groups react. Bill C-5 becomes law, setting a dangerous precedent. This is the Build Canada Act. A lot of... does it say who's by? It's just from the Climate Action Network. A lot of laws can be bypassed, especially environmental laws, because of the Build Canada Act. And this article is saying that there will be increased opposition and legal challenges which delay projects and cost government money if something ends up going wrong after the fact. There's some quotes. The National Policy Analysis of Climate Action Network Canada says that there's risk of severe environmental harms and there's trampling of the rights of Indigenous people. A spokesperson for West Coast Environmental Law said Bill C-5 is an assault on science and democracy. For more than half a century, we have made decisions according to the basic principles that we should look before we leap. The Canadian Environmental Law Association executive director said public input into this decision, to the decision making of the federal government in choosing major projects, is critically important. Those who will suffer the most from the lack of application of these critical laws in decision-making are inevitably those with the least power in the decision-making halls of government. Environmental Defense says Bill C-5, like its cousins Ontario Bill 5, takes us backwards. to a time when major developments went ahead without proper review. Polluters filled our drinking water with an air with toxins, and the public were told to sit down and shut up about the impacts. And then there's more quotes. So that law was passed under Mark Carney. There was a NOAA article called Mark Carney named an LNG expansion project to be considered in the national interest. Oh, wait, sorry. Oh, the article is analysis how Mark Carney is complicating Canada's climate progress by Cole Mail. And this is from October 2025. And from the article, science has already shown the planet was approaching the limits of what carbon pollution it can absorb before severe and irreversible consequences occur. There's been several studies. There's some from the United Nations. I know that we have less than 10 years before irreversible impacts of climate change occur, and we know we're close to meeting that. Canada won't meet its 2030 targets, according to the Canadian Climate Institute. And Mark Carney repealed the carbon levy, delayed electric vehicles, and is expanding fossil gas and potentially expanding other fossil fuels. From the article, carbon pollution from the oil sands increased 480% from 1990 to 2023, and fossil gas by 37%. And then there's decisions listed, such as killing the consumer carbon tax, which is actually a levy. Those are a distinction between a levy and a tax. It was supposed to be a rebate check and divided among taxpayers, and people could pocket the difference on what they spent. A lot of people saved money, but the government didn't clearly communicate this. About 20 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent will be added to the atmosphere, according to the Canadian Climate Institute. And there was pausing of the electric vehicle mandate, and that started on September 5th. And then there was a review of whether or not it will go ahead. Natural gas, I call it fossil gas, will increase methane, and at full capacity it will be 13 million tons of greenhouse gases equivalent, which is about 1/5 of the entire emissions profile of British Columbia. Those nuclear reactors, the nuclear energy supply chain does increase greenhouse gases. such as mining, refining, enriching, and transporting uranium. And those long periods of time before installation, and solar and wind energy are cheaper. And then there's Bill C5, which is the Build Canada Act, was passed, which allows the government to bypass certain rules, including impact assessments. And then this article, Canada 2030 climate target failed of reach according to federal data, by David Thornton. With the government's current climate measures, Canada is on track to reduce its emissions by 21% below 2005 levels by the end of this decade. But it is supposed to be 40 to 45%. Additional climate policies are, with additional climate policies, it could be 28% reduction. As opposed, but it should be closer to 40 to 45%, which is the goal. Under Mark Carney's predecessor, Justin Trudeau, the country was on track to slash emissions by 34% below 2005 levels in 2030. So let's see. So even under Justin Trudeau, there was not enough action being taken. I'm just going to do a quick calculation. So 34... subtract 21, 13% difference between Mark Carney and Justin Trudeau. And Justin Trudeau was doing better at reducing carbon emissions according to projections. So Mark Carney is wrong when he says that he's interested in results. Like, the results are showing that Mark Carney is failing to take climate seriously. There was an article, Canada's emissions flatlined in 2024, early estimate shows, by Dave Soil and Seaton DeBolt. And it flatlined in 2024 at 694 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions, and it's unchanged from previous years. And I don't believe that the pandemic can be blamed after 2023. And then those return to work mandates, I haven't even got to that. That adds some emissions, especially if you're getting rid of electric vehicle mandates. And then the oil sands added, this article says that the oil sands added 3 megatons of carbon dioxide equivalent, eclipsing other sectors' contributions. And then there was a repeat of some of the rollbacks. And there could be coal fire in Saskatchewan. Let's see. Achieving Canada's 2030 target would require year-over-year reductions equal to 40 megatons, far beyond the ambition of current policy. And then missing the 2030 targets by a wide margin would leave Canada well off the path to 2035 and 2050 targets, forcing much deeper and more expensive emissions reductions later. And then it said that repealing the carbon tax could add 20 megatons of carbon dioxide equivalent by 2030. So that's huge. I think there should be clarity on what action is being taken by the Mark Carney government. And then there was an article in the Walrus. No matter which way you look at it, Carney has abandoned climate. There was the Building Climate Act, expansion of LNG, talking about being an energy superpower, and those abandoning methane reductions, billions in cuts to climate programs, including the tree planting and greener homes grant. Homes account for 30% of greenhouse gases, or about a third, or buildings, I should say. And if you get rid of the greener home grant, or make cuts to that, there's less in environmental changes being made, positive changes. There's the Ottawa's moratorium of understanding with the border, groups that cautiously supported Carney's climate strategy, like Pamela Institute and the Canadian Climate Institute, reversed their positions. Simon Donald and Catherine Abreu quit the Federal Net Zero Advisory Board and said that there was no question the whole downward trend in Canada's greenhouse gas emissions will be reversed by the current government. And those are quotes. And then carbon capture doesn't really capture that much. It will capture 1/10 of the carbon of the new pipeline that's proposed. And then those policy alternatives, the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives by Hadrian Martinez Cookwood. Is Carney's climate credibility crumbling? He downplayed objectives of the climate agreement, Paris Climate Agreement. And then he's talking more about economic action than more social imperative. And those 200, most of the fossil fuels companies account for about less than 2% of the investment in renewables. And that's only 0.13% of the total energy produced by the companies. And a lot of them are foreign workers. Foreign shareholders. And Canada is violating the commitment to end fossil fuel finance. And I didn't even mention that Canada backtracked on greenwash regulations, implementing those. There's an article in The Breach called Mark Carney's Pact with Daniel Smith is Climate Carnage. And this is between Desmond Cole and Seth Klein. There's still no company to let's see. Yeah, there's no consultation, no negotiation with First Nations or British Columbia. There's massive concessions to Alberta. And then they're saying that Daniel Smith has gotten everything that she wanted. Oh, they're backing away from greenwashing. And they got a delay on methane reductions. There was a call vote for clean electricity regulations. And Daniel Smith can block a lot of renewables. They're saying that the industrial carbon price is backtracking on climate as well, because it was 170, but now it's only going to be 130. The Supreme Court of Canada made it clear that the federal government had jurisdiction. There was apparently there was a report from Environment and Climate Change Canada where there would be an estimate of what the industrial carbon price would be to offset the greenhouse gas reductions that have been forfeited, and apparently it's $400 a ton. So that's a huge amount of demonstrating that the Mark Carney is backsliding on climate. And then other provinces are going to want to have the same deals, so there's going to be a race to the bottom. And then I don't think I highlighted anything else in this conversation. And then there was the Bill 5. There's Section 19, if a national interest project is also designated project as defined in Section 2 of the Impact Assessment Act. Sections 9 to 17 and subsections 18.3 to 6 of the Act do not apply in respect to the project and for the purposes of Section 18 of the Act. And then the Impact Assessment Agency is deemed to have decided an impact assessment as defined in Section 2 of that Act for the purposes of the project is required. And then there's no time limits for the project under that Act. And then the government can exempt one or more national interest projects from the application of any provision of that enactment or any provision of regulation made under that enactment. So those laws that the government can exempt from. Specific laws such as the Fisheries Act, the Canadian Environmental Protection Act, Species at Risk Act. So the species at risk are doubly impacted from the provincial government and the federal government. Yeah, and then there's some regulations. And then there's West Coast Environmental Law. They say that some of the acts that can be exempted they include the Fisheries Act, Species at Risk Act, Impact Assessment Act, Migratory Bird Sanctuary Regulations, Migratory Bird Regulations, and that they will jeopardize the survival and recovery of an endangered species. And then the governor and council cannot remove a project from Schedule 1 after the minister has issued a conditions document. Projects are deemed to have been accepted. And they do expire after 5 years. And then, let's see. Oh, yeah, and then there was another article from West Coast Environmental Law. Mark Carney's climate track record, Grand Bargain or Bargain Bin. There was walking back of several environmental law, fast tracking of fossil fuel projects under the Building Canada Act. So I will go back to the main video. Yeah, so in reference to the beginning, there does need to be more regulation. Regulations do have a positive impact on reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and while they might not be as effective as necessary, eliminating them leads to climate inaction. The articles that I've shown demonstrate that Mark Carney is not serious on climate action. There doesn't appear to be a lot of there appears to be a lot of investment into fossil fuel expansion and not a lot of reductions in greenhouse gases as projections have shown. And eliminating a lot of the environmental programs will result in increased greenhouse gases, which will have the impact of increasing the frequency of severe weather and could increase the risk of deaths from extreme heat. And there is a price associated with climate inaction, from infrastructure being destroyed, infrastructure and investments into keeping people healthy that all needed. Yeah, don't let Carney greenwash you into believing that he is a champion of environmental causes. It's important to look into the results of what the government is actually doing and the projections that result from those actions or inactions. And it's important to look at credible sources of information from multiple sources. I appreciate you, and thank you for watching. And I will go to a title code.